Good evening. Welcome to this episode of Prophecy for the Last Hour. My name is Elizabeth McGee and I'm your host tonight. And I have meat prepared at the dinner hour. So I hope you are going to be able to stay with me for the duration. I have a lot of things that I'm ready to serve up and I am going to continue on a thread that I have been doing. So that being said, I wanted to start with a couple of quotes here, a little bit like on a lighter note. I have been doing some reading on the different ways people think, and I've learned, because I want to say this little bit is for my detractors, people who say I never get to the point, and I know I do have a problem with that, but it's because I am a lateral thinker. I've learned there's two kinds of thinking people in the world. You can be linear or lateral. We really are a mixture of both. This is the old adage, women tend to be very lateral, men tend to be very linear. But in some of the definitions of these types of thinking, I thought it was kind of interesting. Because I do think that God knows what he's doing, and I do think that my lateral personality type or thinking process has really helped me along the route or the road that God has me on of exploring the mysteries. So let me just tell you the linear thinker versus the lateral thinker. Here's one. A linear thinker sees the world as black and white. The person using this thinking style cannot create options, make secondary arrangements. If the primary procedure breaks down, find the middle ground or compromise. Now that's probably a little bit harsh, but the point is that reaching the goal is paramount. Because linear thinking is repetitious, the outcome never changes, which can lead to diminishing results. And as Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Now, the core of a lateral thinker is someone who can break from the established process to see the world, particularly the problem, from different and multiple perspectives. It ignores logic. Oh, I know that's so true. Let's say politically correct logic. For unorthodox or random stimulation. Those would be what some of my detractors, and even my son, whom I love dearly, says this to me all the time. A person using lateral thinking searches for as many alternative ways to view the problem, situation, or environment. It's true. And any one of which may produce a new and unusual answer, or as frequently, not. Now, in short, the driver using linear thinking likes to be safe, keep the nose down, and let's just get the job done. The lateral thinker just enjoys the destination and is not interested in the straight line. And they like the exploration, the spontaneity. They seek disruption, reject traditional ways of looking at things, explores unusual or illogical combinations. Outside influences are welcome. As much as fate, luck, and chance, there are no mistakes, only an opportunity which didn't work as hoped. Now, these are ways, but there's a little bit of a truth there, because I do think the fact that which means I have a ton of windows open at the same time. So I so many thought patterns and threads that I am working on all at the same time. But there's a reason for this. And now this is why I'm asking you, as people who have criticized my approach, that I never finish my sentences and I never get to the point. You are absolutely right. Because I have been so enjoying with Hashem, this whole smorgasbord that is available to the believer, that the Spirit is being poured out, that there is so much information that we can come to an understanding of all things at this time. If you'll just get out of the world and quit playing Candy Crush and get your head into Torah and really start reading and seeking and asking and knocking with all your heart, oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. But we need to do this. Because see, the problem is, they say that 90% of our thinking today is linear thinking. Now, the problem with that, and that's not by accident, because linear thinking tends to, you don't become a critical thinker, which means you have to think outside the box. You have to always examine your paradigms and your presuppositions. This is where, and it gets me to another quote that I want to say. This man who said, here's just another quote that ties in. It says, a man who would be equal to the Bible must be large-hearted, generous and free, not fettered and bound by the errors of youthful training, the selfishness of sectarianism, the bigotry of orthodoxy, or the indifference of infidelity. But seek the truth no matter from whence or what it upsets or overturns of preconceived ideas. The command is to prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. Unfortunately, to hear some people talk and complain today, the detractors, you would think that the command was prove nothing, but hold hard onto what you've got. See, this is the thing. People, we aren't critical thinkers anymore. And this is part of the, they say this out there in the secular world in terms of our educational system. We're just putting out, kids who can just spew back the data. They just know how to word it right to get the A on the test. They're not thinking through the data, and they're not examining it, being taught to examine, hard examination. See, truth, you don't have to be afraid of it. It's going to hold up under the toughest microscopic examination. Now, you might not get to the bottom of it because you might not have all the information. And this is what we have now understand, that through the different ages, we really haven't been running on a full deck or playing with a full deck in terms of our theology. So, but the point is, I do have a conclusion. And I am going to get there. And I am asking my detractors to pray for me, because it is going to be hard for me to focus my brain and to focus on what I know now the Lord has been trying to show me. It's like he's had a carrot out there and he keeps moving it around and going down this rabbit trail and that rabbit trail to gain information, because I have this thought in this revelation. I'm thinking, God, is that really true? Is what I'm seeing? Now I understand about revelation, because everything, revelation, I said spiritual wisdom and revelation knowledge, Hokmah and Bina, in Kabbalistic terms, the masculine, the feminine aspects of it comes by revelation. No man can teach you. See, this is why you've got to get past your youthful, your youthful training, what your denomination taught you. You have to become, if you want to grow in the Lord, a spiritual seeker and a spiritual discerner. So all that being said, I am going to get to the point. And it's going to be rather shocking. It's shocking to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, who would have thought? But we're there. And the reason is because, see, now I want to get back to this. I've been teaching on Kabbalah. Okay, so I want to say this. I have, I won't say I've read everything. I have read enormously in all of the literature that is available in the Judeo-Christian heritage, Old Testament, pre-Moses, so Enochian literature, and that includes a lot of other things, Hermetic information, and the New Testament, and a lot of history and a lot of other stuff, and I mean a lot of other people's stuff, okay, to try to get to the bottom of this. But I will say that the Lord did start to show me very early on the vibratory nature of words, and like how this is like, there's way more than meets the eye here, Lord. It was like, oh my gosh, I know there's something so deep behind this word, and the way they're used and everything. And then I kept digging, and I did, oh yeah, it is encrypted. And then I got finally into the Zohar, that truly Jewish mysticism, the oral Torah, this is nothing new under the sun. See, that's why I know I'm not making this up. I'm just absolutely building on the foundation of Paul and everybody else. In the Zohar, this is one of the last understandings that is open to anybody, that everyone, and this will confirm truth finally, as we really and truly do get back the keys, get to the understanding, and unlock all this stuff. And we're going to be ready, and we're going to turn around, and we're going to, hey, let me tell you something, the wicked are going to be no more. So there's two books, for those who have been really seeking and reading a lot of the extra biblical literature. I mean, there's a whole army out there of people who are being lateral thinkers, reading everything, from Jasher to Jubilees to Enoch to the Apocrypha to the Pseudegraphia to the Deuterocanicals to everything. One of the last places to really wrap your mind around is in the Zohar, which is the Jewish oral Torah, okay, and in the Sefer Yetzirah I think I say that right, I'm not sure, Yitzhak, which is the writings of Abraham. Okay, because Abraham, and what I have found out that this knowledge has been lost and found and lost and found and lost and found all through our 6,000 years. So all that being said, I hope I have sort of explained myself to my linear friends. I love you, and I hope you will stick with me because we are going somewhere. And we will get there to our destination. I will get to the destination. But anyways, last week I was talking about the 7,000 years, and I have said this a lot. You really have to get the Hebraic mindset on this because we have been grafted into a Hebraic root, and it's very important. So I have been doing this overview of how they understand the 6,000 years of history before we get into the last 1,000-year reign, the millennial reign. Most people, you at least understand that we're coming into this quote-unquote millennial reign. Things are going to change on a dime. We've gone through 6,000 years of Adamic history. I don't think anybody argues about that, that that's a way of counting time, whether you believe Adam was a real character or not. And we're going into, after the millennium, what is in Jewish, and actually I use the word more Hebraic understanding, the Olam Haba, which is the world to come, which, praise God, you want to be in the world to come. You want your name to be written, to be found in the book of life, in the roll that's called up yonder, when the gig is up, and make it into the city of God, the New Jerusalem, the Zion from above, the Olam Haba. Now, let me go into, again, a quick overview, because part of the problem that has beset the church, and the Gentile Christian church for the last at least 1,800 years, really and truly, is they really were infiltrated very quickly, and a lot of the history was just, the books were burned, and it was just wiped off the map. And a lot of the information that we have received has been very much molded and shaped and disseminated back to, that doesn't really have, it's not the whole truth and nothing but the truth. I mean, Paul even said, he said at the end of the age that we would be full of doctrines of demons. So I don't know why people are shocked. I mean, it's just, and why are you afraid of demons? I mean, just cast them out. Renew your mind, cast them out. Now, this first 2,000 years is what we have to talk about. You have to understand, and they had broke it down into different categories, but in this biggest picture, and I'm using big words, I'm painting like a lateral thinker in a big picture with a broad brush. The first 2,000 years kind of have this concept of chaos. And believe me, when you get into the history, you understand chaos. The second 2,000 years of our 6,000-year history was the time of the law and the testimony. Remember, to the law and to the testimony. And then the last 2,000 years, the last 2 days, and this is what Paul saw, and he was very much, his revelation and his ministry, his focus was on doing his job to get going to the last 2,000 years, the days of the Messiah. And so we're coming up into when the king, and I think this is paramount, that the gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the earth. And then come at the end, then we go into the millennium. Now, back into this idea of the chaos, and it's from the root word, and I know in Genesis, if you've done your Hebrew, you'll hear it, in the world was tahu bahu, without form or void, and one of the words translates chaos. I can't remember off the top of my head from last, because I don't have my notes from last week, if it's tahu or if it's bahu, that is the word chaos. But either way, see, then I ended up on this, and this is something we're just going to have to go back to this, because I'm just going to touch on it, but there are people today unpacking this in such minute detail. We are going to reclaim the truth. This is the time, like I said, of the gods and the demi-gods. Okay, if you think the Greek mythology, that this is just, these people were on drugs, this is just some made-up fantasy world, you need to start thinking again, and you need to, because, a lot of this is because, in some of the prophecies that Jesus gave, when he was speaking, he was trying to coach people along too. He was a great Torah, he was the greatest Torah rabbi. because they were asking him what would be the signs of the times when he would return. And he said, well, when it is, he says, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be again. And that's just thrown around a lot. But we need to, this is my problem with just sticking with one text that just has one verse. You cannot base your whole understanding of these 2,000 years chaos on one verse, as it was in the days of Noah. You need to get to read everything so that you can really begin to wrap your mind around what was going on in the day, and the fact that Noah lived. This is the days of Noah are not just up to the flood, they are 350 years after the flood. Abraham is called at just about the 2,000 year point here when we go into the next verse. And basically, these are just strategies or just different ways that God, he says in different times and in different ways. He defeated his enemy. He just kept his march through history, reclaiming and resaving and restoring the lost. So this is just different ways. Satan had a strategy. God had a counter strategy. So these days of chaos, in this time we have the flood. We have this whole mythologies of the world, the gods, the demi-gods, the watcher angels, the fallen angels, the Benai Elohim, Genesis 6, the sons of God cohabitating with the daughters of men. You have Sodom and Gomorrah. You have right around this cusp, but finally ended up again with Nimrod, a showdown between Nimrod and Abraham. And I'm going to come back to that. You have... this is the time where you have what was going on here comes down into here. And this explains the whole story of them taking back the land and having to deal with the ites. These are all, I used to just blow by these names. Now, you know, to tell you a little secret, genealogy is everything in your Bible. You better figure out, study who these people groups you refer to and what is their story. Because it's in the details that you're going to gain understanding. The ites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Amalekites, the Canaanites and the Canaanites and the Kenites. There's so many ites, okay? And this is something you have to understand, who these people groups were and what their story was, okay? You have to understand here in time what happened after the boat when the boys come off. Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and repopulated the whole earth. And what happened in that 350 years where Noah was still around, the days of Noah, where they went right back to what was going on before the flood. And then we have the Tower of Babel. Again, God confuses, he confounds, more than confuses, he confounds the plans. Okay, you need to get, let's go back a couple more of these. But then on the flip side, this is the time of Enoch. This is where Enoch reigns supreme. This is when, of Noah and Shem and of the righteous remnant. This is the time of, and this is another thing, and I'll just mention this quickly. Well, I won't go there first. But for Enoch, okay, so let me just give you, there's two ways you can look at dating. You can look at it as years from the creation, or this AD BC thing of BC. So it's so many years BC. So in my dating, I'm going to say in this first 2,000 years, you have Enoch was living, and I'm, again, for my linear friends, I'm rounding off my numbers radically. I'm just rounding them off, okay? These are rounded off, okay? Enoch lived 600 years from creation, okay? The flood happened, or Noah was born 1,000 years, right in the middle of this 2,000 years, about 1,000 years from creation. From, and I shouldn't even say creation, from the fall of, from paradise. Okay, the Garden of Eden. This is where the clock starts ticking here, really at the fall of Adam. Okay, so from that point, so Enoch or Noah is about 1,000 years into that. The flood happens 600 years later, about in around 1,650 years from creation. So really and truly, the flood happened in 1,650 years. This whole thing went really south to the point where God had to, and it was in complete chaos, and he had to completely scrap much of this pre-Diluvian world because they had basically re-engineered genetically just about everything in the creation, including themselves. And this is where you get into Genesis 6. So let me just ask you, and this is being a lateral thinker, critical thinker. Now it says that Noah too, and let me throw this out here. Noah, and he lived 350 years after the flood. He was born, let me just get this right, because, all right, Abraham was 892 years when Abraham was born. So, and he didn't die till he was 950. He lived 20 years longer than Adam, okay? So just wrap your mind around that for a second. Here's this guy Noah. He lived 20 years longer than Adam. Adam lived 930 years. Noah lived 950 years. And he was around for about 50 years when Abraham was born. So he knew, Abraham knew his uncle Noah, okay, and Shem, this whole family. And I've done videos on that. You can go back and look in the archives. But the point is, if somebody's going to live, let's just say this for argument's sake, somebody is going to live for what kind of a human being are they? I mean, we live 60 years really today, 70, maybe, with health and strength and vitality and a mind, before you start. Everybody today, even my young son, everybody's losing their quote unquote, their memory mind today. We won't even go to what's causing that. But imagine living 950. I mean, what do you do with your time? You build cities. You repopulate. This is the thing about in the time of Nimrod. What we have to say, these are worldwide empires. These people were genetically and even some of the tech larger. This is the whole point of the giants. Even these guys and some of these are gods, and I use a small g, and I'm not using it like in the term of Hashem. Don't get all freaked out. I'm saying these people are worthy of mythologies, legends. I mean, if you can't make a legend out of somebody who lives 950 years and lives through a worldwide deluge, what's the point then, okay? Seriously, I just think we need, and this is what's dawning, we need to understand again how unbelievably these stories are larger than life because these people are larger than life. Now, and this is a fact that even the time of Abraham, I think that Abraham lived to 175, and as you come down, the death rate, gets shorter and shorter and shorter. After the flood, people definitely start living less time. I think that Shem lived to be about 106-50. One of the last really old ones. Isaac, they're around the one. Moses died at 125. I mean, this thing keeps coming down. But one thing you have to understand about this, and this is in our DNA, because we're copied. With it, I don't know how else to. So we're like a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. After a while of any copy, the ink starts to run out. This is the point. We're nothing lasts forever in this sense, in this fallen world we are. And the Lord even said, even in a day of the Lord is 1,000 years, 1,000 years a day, that in that day you shall die. Within a day, this is a very established Hebraic numerology, that a day and 1,000 years go hand in hand in many contexts. This is the whole point of the 7-day week is an archetype of the 7,000 years of man's Adamic history, from the fall to the point of total restoration again. So these are important, and but you need to really begin to think critically and to start to read some of the research and start to wrap your mind around this. Because these people truly were larger than life on both sides. Now, one of the things that is, like I just want to say, on the flip side, they were brilliant. See, I don't buy into any of this thing that these are cave people and they're just learning how to farm. No. I don't believe that at all. First of all, you look at the works, of the ancient world, even if, what do they call those? The seven wonders of the world, and we still have the pyramids, rock, the Belbac, the Mayan, and Machu Picchu, and the Aztec, and some of the ruins we find. The ruins we're finding under the ocean today. I mean, people, there is just so much. And what we have to do is begin to rewrite the history correctly. And then you get into the demigods, then you get into the giants, and they really do get into creating offspring of half angelic and half human. Then you get into the whole thing of the Canaanites, of Abel, Cain and Abel being of his father, a fallen angel. This is fact. This is documented. This is in there, okay? And it is in there. I'm sorry if, and I've said this before, that the story we get in Genesis is sort of like a kindergarten story, and it's done that on purpose. Because it is written for the kindergarten reader and understander. But the deeper mysteries are there in the oral Torah. It's documented. It is in there, people. Nobody's making this up. So we really have to get a handle on, but the game starts to change again here at the 2,000 years. When we go into the time of the law and the testimony, this is where we get into the patriarchs. Now, this is where God, I've said this before, it sort of changes up the game. See, because they went back to this whole hibernization thing with Nimrod. And I just want to tell you how we're going to reclaim, because people are, and Sodom and Gomorrah, people are beginning to understand these stories on a much deeper level. Nimrod, that's what he's called in our Bible. But he is a world figure. This is the point. These people were worldwide legends. I did a teaching where I said that the Enoch, the son of Cain, Teti-Enochatin, I can't say, which is the city, Mexico City is built on, which is the city of Enoch. Well, we know that's not Enoch, and you have to judge things by their fruit. Enoch of the righteous bloodline. And you get into these cultures, the ancient cultures of the Aztecs and the Mayans and some of these things from South America, what we're finding here in North America. You find it all over the world. In Bulgaria and Romania, in that whole part of the world, tons of things. Under the Caspian Sea, tons of things. Egypt and Babylon, tons of things. Okay, so we just have to really, you just really need to stop being linear in the sense of not being able to think outside the box. Okay, because that's not going to do you any good. Because what Jesus did say, he said, by the way, he said, as it was in the days of Noah, and then he goes on to say, hey, look, I'm sorry, but men's hearts are going to fail for fear because of what's coming upon the earth, because it's all coming back out again front and center. This is the point what we need to understand, okay? And we need to understand how powerful our patriarchs were in combating this flip side, this bloodline, okay? We have nothing to fear. Now, some of the names for Nimrod that in the cultures of the world, okay, because you have to understand, everybody's telling the same story. They're spinning it their own way, and they're changing the names. And it's not that deliberate, but languages change, so the name changes with it, and if you don't keep up with it, it gets lost. So Gilgamesh, Baal, Melkart, Adonis, these are all gods of the ancient world. Dionysus, Mithra, Orion, Apollo, Tammuz, Osiris, Bacchus. These are some of the names for Nimrod, I believe, and from the research that people have been doing, basically, and it's the tellings from whether he was in Egypt, or if your telling is coming from a cultural, because, the Egyptians, that